think my friend's clumsy boyfriend is purposely hurting her. So my, 26, friend K, 26, has been dating Andrew, 25, for almost a year now. Honestly, until these last months I really liked them together and he has assimilated into our friend group really well. He's been easy to talk to and is someone who I thought could be the perfect match to K. In the beginning Andrew has always been known for being clumsy, occasionally spilling on himself, tripping and sometimes just being an overall goof. We joked he was the poster child of a himbo. It started with a simple mistake, Andrew spilling wine on K's outfit. He seemed so apologetic, and genuinely sorry. Then a couple days later at a potluck, Andrew bumps into K while she was bringing out a salad bowl, causing it to fall on her foot and giving her a pretty nasty bruise. Again apologetic, but this time just rubbed me the wrong way. It seemed awkward the way he had bumped into her. Then there were just more of these accidents, like ripping a dress when he was falling trying to catch his balance, dropping a bowl of chocolate ice cream on her shoes, and spilling an ashtray that landed all over her hair. All of this is just giving me a weird feeling, like why does it feel like his clumsiness is getting worse? Recently we were having a movie night, Kay was sitting on the floor and I had gotten up from the couch to get some more popcorn when I see Andrew walking over with hot tea. I'm thinking no way I'm going to have her get piping hot tea spilled on her by accident. So I get up and say, oh thanks for grabbing this, do you mind grabbing me popcorn since you're closest? He kind of gets a defensive tone with me saying yeah but let me give this to Kay first. I said no, it's not a problem, I'll give it to her. As sweet as possible, and took the mug out of his hands and gave it to Kay. He seemed kind of distant the whole rest of the evening. I talked with one of my friends in our group just about the tea drama and she said that Andrew might have been pissed off feeling like I was babying him. I think that if he's been prone to hurting his girlfriend, wouldn't he want to avoid situations that could get her seriously hurt? Wouldn't you want a friend to help you? Am I just overthinking this? I want to talk to Kay about my concerns soon because I'm really scared for her. I just want to be wise in how I speak to her because I don't want her to take anything I say the wrong way. This evening I got a text from Andrew. It seems my friend, who I'll be referring to as Sarah, had told him about the tea situation. He texted, hey, just wanted to reach out and let you know that I wasn't pissed with you. I played it cool and just replied, hey, no problem man, just wanted to make sure all was good with you. He messaged me back that haha, yeah why wouldn't I be? I left it alone after that. I reached out to Sarah and asked how the story was relayed to him and she explained that it sort of came up in conversation. She had told him that I hadn't meant to baby him and hoped I didn't make him pissed by taking away the teacup. Sarah is a fixer and I think she just wanted any conflict between us to be resolved. While I know she was coming from a good place, I am a bit frustrated to have my words twisted into what she believes happened. I messaged Kay and we are still hanging out either early Monday or Tuesday. She seemed to be fine with me. We had a quick call but she seemed less talkative, which has me nervous. I really hope I didn't screw everything up. After a lot of comments I've decided I'm going to be careful with my wording. A lot of you have pointed out Andrew could have a medical condition. While I'm a bit skeptical I will keep this in mind. Andrew's clumsiness while apparent was always self-inflicted, like a small spill or mostly tripping Abbott over his feet. It's been only recently with his behavior it's become more pointed towards Kay. Like he's rarely been him being the injured or spilled on party, it's now been only Kay. The dress he ripped was one of her favorites, and she had to go home early because it ripped in the cleavage area and she was more so embarrassed. The ashtray being dumped on her hair was when she was wearing her hair natural, curly, when she mostly straightens it. But she'll have her hair natural randomly and nothing happens. Also he totally ruined her white heels with the chocolate ice cream. That's something I've been thinking about and writing it all down. I just realized, all the accidents have to do with her looks. Spilling on her outfits, bumping into her when she's wearing a dress, chocolate ice cream on her shoes, those were white heels. I know that's just speculation. Someone else said it could be a Munchausen by proxy situation. Overall just solidifies that I just need to talk to her, which I am this week. Also her reaction to these accidents is always quick to try to move on. She is somewhat introverted and doesn't like attention, so she's just quick to say she's fine and move on from it. She'll tell Andrew that she forgives him and just to be careful. Hopefully my concerns can be addressed in a way that flows with our conversation. My father blamed my sister for my mother's death and now that she calls me daddy he regrets. I, 24, am the older brother to my little sibling, 5, I was always the one who had to take care of my sister. For the sake of privacy I'll call her Belle. For some background, my parents had me as teenagers, they were 15 and 16 at the time, and even as a kid I could always feel that they regretted having me. After I was born both my mother and father were practically disowned by their family. My mother had to drop out of high school to take care of me while my father worked 2 jobs just to provide, and even then they couldn't afford a home. They lived with my mother's older sister until I was 9 and my father got his GED and managed to get a better job and move us out. Despite the fact our living situation was better, it was clear to me that they believed their lives were ruined because of me. Whenever I misbehaved like any normal child they'd use the fact that they gave up their lives for me, and I still had the audacity to behave like this. And even when I never misbehaved they never treated me with much love. I barely got to get new clothing. They'd get my clothes from Goodwill and practically refused to get me anything nice unless they had to: birthdays, parties, meeting friends, and their wedding. My birthdays were always celebrated with the bare minimum. They'd get me a cupcake and a single gift, nothing that I wanted. Despite everything I was still a child who just wanted their love, but as I grew older I began to accept I wouldn't get it and made peace with that. I guess somewhere along the line when my parents realized I gave up on them, as throughout my teen years they, mainly my mother, began to treat me better. But at that point I wasn't the child who begged for their love anymore. I never received the love of my parents and I wasn't asking for it anymore. Although I can't say I kept hating them. In fact my feeling began to feel neutral towards them. In my eyes we were practically strangers. I never got to know them truly as they raised me with the bare minimum and never had any real conversations with me and never spent any quality time with me. They also knew nothing about me, so them suddenly trying to play parents with me was awkward to say the least. When I was 18 my mother got pregnant and I guess that was when they gave up on trying to fix things with me as they could have a new child to start over with. They didn't treat me poorly again but instead it felt like we were strangers living in the same home. When I turned 19 my mother gave birth to a girl but due to some complications she didn't end up surviving. This crushed my father. Not only did he begin to resent me for not being as sad as he was over her death, she was barely a mother to me so there wasn't much to be sad over, but he also blamed his daughter for unaliving his wife. He was never home after the incident and I was left taking care of my sister. I ended up having to take a break from college after the time I came home from my classes to my sister screaming with hunger in an unchanged diaper while my father was out drinking. I took care of Belle full time and called out my father multiple times but he always got angry and ended the convo with him saying I could always leave Belle at the fire station. I eventually gave up on forcing him to be a father. Despite everything I truly loved Belle. She was the sweetest and cutest kid. She was almost always smiley and surprisingly slept through the night. Once she was old enough I enrolled her in daycare and continued my education while working night shifts. I always made sure to leave a good portion of afternoons empty so I could spend time with her. She always knew who her actual father was and as she grew older she began to try and spend time with him I guess as she began to follow him around the house. Of course that quickly ended after he blew up on her and she began to fear him. I realized she saw me as a parental figure despite the fact she knew I was her brother. When she was old enough for preschool I found out she was telling people I was her father. I never mentioned it to her and just let it be until she gave her Father's Day card she made in preschool to me. I then told her if she wanted she could call me Dad and since then she's been calling me Daddy. My father ended up getting a girlfriend and began to change himself as he stopped drinking, got a better job, and even began to take over on a majority of the bills other than the portion I agreed to pay to stay living here. He never really tried being a father to Belle. He did begin to eat breakfast with us but that breakfast was spent in silence other than me and Belle talking. Fast forward to a few months ago on Belle's birthday, I had planned a party for her and invited her preschool class. My father ended up attending as I guess his girlfriend thought it would be a good time to meet his daughter as she was the one who looked excited to be here. Anyways, while she was opening gifts I surprised her with one of those kids' electric cars. She screamed and hugged me yelling how she loved me and called me Daddy. After the party and after Belle was fast asleep, my father asked me what the hell happened. I was confused till he yelled asking why his daughter was calling me Daddy. I asked him if he seriously didn't know why and told him that I was the one who raised her. I bought her everything. I celebrated her firsts. I was the one who didn't abandon her. He was quiet and went to bed. Since then he's tried to play father and talk to her but he was a stranger to her. She was a sweet girl so she entertained my father's conversation but he could tell how awkward she felt and it was clear it hurt him. Despite how selfish it is I don't want their relationship to get better. After all just as she saw me as her dad I saw her as my daughter. I graduated college and I'm looking for a better job so I can move Belle and I into our own home. I may be a bad person for enjoying my father's misery and regret realizing he ruined his chances in having a relationship with his daughter but I'll never be as bad as him. My son's friend's parents wants to take my son away from me. I am terrified that they're going to try to take him by force. I, 24, am a single mom to my son, Owen, 8. It's been just us since day one. His father isn't in the picture and has been able to avoid child support for years now. Yes, I've tried everything. My own parents disowned me. I had to drop out of high school and have worked a myriad of jobs since then to keep us afloat. We aren't on the poverty line by any means, but we definitely live paycheck to paycheck, in a one-bedroom apartment. It's not ideal and I hope within the next couple of years, we'll be in someplace bigger. For now, it's our situation. I've raised Owen to know that money isn't everything. We may not have a lot. He won't always have the newest this or that. But we have each other. The two of us are very close. He has never gone without the basics, but I admit, he doesn't get a lot of fun extras. I try to save a little here and there to make birthdays and holidays fun, but it's still never anything glamorous. And I think Owen was fine with that. Until recently, anyway. In our area, all the public schools are based on a lottery system. So, your child has a fair shot of going to any of them, so long as you put in their name. Our neighborhood school is not great and in a pretty crappy area, so I decided to put him in a different one across town. It's near my job, so it works out. Last year, when he was in 2nd grade, he met Charlie. They began hanging out a lot after school, with Owen going to his place. I met Charlie's parents, Nate and Paige, a couple of times before this began. They seemed very nice and supportive. Owen always had a great time at their house. Charlie occasionally came to our apartment, but usually they were at his place. Which made sense. I work and there's really not much for them to do here, even when I am off. Summer breaks are easy to find care, as there are several free or low-cost camps that I can put Owen in. It's the shorter breaks, such as Christmas and spring, that are harder. Camp space is limited. Spring break of 2022, I managed to just miss registration. Paige is a stay-at-home mom and offered to take Owen for the week. I was hesitant to ask so much of her but she insisted. He had a really fun time with them. They did a ton of activities and Paige refused my attempts to pay her back at least some. I couldn't afford all. They began posting to social media about how wonderful Owen was. How they were so happy to a second son around. I admit, I did feel a tad uncomfortable with her spending this much on my son, but at the same time, I didn't want to deprive Owen of this stuff. Summer came and while I did get Owen into camp, he spent a ton of time with Charlie as well. He ended up going on vacation with them. I was again, very hesitant, but the experience was something I could never give Owen and it wasn't too far away. He had a blast. I kept telling Nate and Paige that there's no way I could ever pay them back and they kept insisting that they loved having Owen around. They told me what a great kid he is. Sweet, respectful. At one point, I really pressed Paige as to why she was so insistent on having Owen around so much. That's when she told me that they never planned for Charlie to be an only child, but all attempts at giving him a sibling just didn't happen. They know that Owen will never make up for not having a brother, but if they can give him a consistent playmate so he's not lonely, they'll do it. Should this have been a red flag? Maybe. But at the same time, I found it sweet that the boys considered each other brothers. Around this time, CPS came and visited my home. I had no idea why they would come, but I played along. Supposedly they were called because of suspected neglect. Once they did their checkup on Owen, they saw that he was thriving in my home. I was a little suspicious, but I thought it could have been our nosy neighbors. I thought it was innocent. Surely, Paige and Nate knew the truth. Right? Right? This continued for a bit, and come Christmas break of 2022, Paige and Nate insisted that I not even bother to try to get Owen into a camp. They'd take care of him for me. I was grateful. They ended up getting him more Christmas gifts than I did. I tried to set my pride aside because it was about Owen, not me. This is still when things finally started seeming off to me. I understood a gift on his birthday, and while they didn't get him as many gifts that they got Charlie, it was a lot more than you would typically get your kid's friend. Fast forward to now. Spring break was last week, and this time, Paige and Nate didn't just offer to take care of him during the day while I worked, they asked if Owen could spend the entire week at their house. Honestly, it meant I could pick up some more shifts and save up for the bike Owen wants for his birthday. So, I said yes. I went to pick him up on Saturday afternoon. The kids were playing out back, so Nate and Paige asked to talk to me. They sat me down and said they love Owen and he's always such a joy to have. I thanked them profusely for all they'd done for him. Paige suggested that Owen stay a little longer. I pointed out Easter was Sunday plus school started up on Monday. They said they could take him to school. I felt weird and said, no, it was time for Owen to come home. That's when Nate suggested that Owen stay with them long term. I could still see him, but they would take care of him. I thought they were joking and said, like what, you'd be his guardians or something? They got quiet and reality rushed over me. I pointed out that this wasn't a movie. They can't just get custody. They started spouting some legal stuff about how I could assign them as guardians and they would help make this transition smooth. They told me to think about Owen and what's best for him. They said that I was too poor to take care of him. They even tried to suggest I was neglecting him. I told them there was no way in hell I was going to give up my son. I grabbed Owen and we left. I've blocked their numbers. Owen has no clue what's going on. I'm keeping him home tomorrow and took the day off work to figure some stuff out. Legally, they can't take him. But now I know what they want and I'm terrified. I don't want him going back to that school. Do we move? I'm so lost. And I feel so stupid because looking back, all the warning signs were there. I know Owen is going to be devastated losing Charlie, Paige, and Nate. How am I ever going to explain it to him?